Colleagues, could you take your seats, please? Everyone, we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Maliki, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be aware that this meeting is being both audio taped and videotaped. We have only one counselor participating remotely at this point in time. That's Counselor Gentile. Everyone else is here in the chamber. We do have 3 absences this evening. 2 absences, I believe. Councilors Lipoff and Humphrey are not with us. Otherwise, everyone is here. Councilor Oliver will be back in momentarily. Okay. We have 2 items on second call right now. But I'm going to start off with the Land Use Committee. Councilor Kelly, would you give the report and assign your public hearings?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to do that. Land Use Committee met on January 23rd. We took up item 67-24, extension of time to exercise a special permit at 1 Jackson Street, and that was approved 7-0. Next 2 items were held. We did item 70-24, which is a request to amend and approve comprehensive sign package. That was approved 8-0. And I do have some public hearings to assign. Should I do them now or when you come to that next?
No, go ahead and please assign your public hearings now.
Thank you. Oops, wrong sheet. I would, on page 30, number 78-24, a request to extend a non-conforming front setback at 300 Cabot Street. These are all, by the way, for a February 6th tomorrow hearing. Also on page 30, item 79, I just did that request, 79-24, sorry, I may have typed this wrong. Oh, sorry, number 395-22, allow for a cash payment in lieu of IZ units at 136-144 Hancock Street. Number 80-24, request to allow a series of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in height in the front setback at 161 Pine Ridge Road. And item 81-24, special permit to construct a single-story addition at 21 Marvin Lane. Those are all on page 30. And number 82-24, this is on page 31, to allow a retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height in the front setback, a few other items at 19 Wobbin Hill Road, page 31, all for tomorrow night, February 6th. All on first call.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Councilor Baker for the Zoning and Planning Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Zoning Planning Committee report is found on page 23 of the reports docket, and the committee met on the 22nd of January, and we reported 2 items for action by the council. The first is item 22-24. This is the Community Preservation Committee recommending appropriation of $125,000 in Community Preservation Act funding from the fiscal year 24 Historic Resource Reserve Fund to the control of the Planning and Development Department for a grant to the Second Church in Newton for the restoration. And the committee voted approval 6-0-1 with Councilor Oliver abstaining and Councilor Albright not voting. And then the other item that we passed, I'm going to get to the next page, is the appointment of Councilor Albright to the Newton Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This is the President Laredo appointing Councilor Susan Albright of 1075 Commonwealth Avenue, Newton, as a member of the Newton Affordable Housing Trust for a term of office to expire on December 31st, 2025, and the committee approved that 8-0. And also, Mr. President, I would like to ask the council to assign a public hearing. We're going to take up Item 7424, which is on page 20, which is the electrification ordinance, and that is going to be a public hearing on, the 24th, I believe.
I believe that's the 26th. Counselor Baker?
26th, sorry, it's Monday. I just want to get my days right. And that is going to pick up the electrification ordinance on that date.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Counselor Baker. Counselor Krinsman for the Programs and Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Report begins on page 24. Programs and Services Committee met on January 17th. At that meeting, item 27-24, this was the item to appropriate $925,000 for Newton Public Schools curriculum investments, was approved by a vote of 8-0. Item 48-24, a resolution on avoiding PFAS in Newton purchasing, was also approved by the committee by a vote of 8-0. Report continues on page 25 with item 57-24, the reappointment of Jane Brown to the Human Rights Commission, approved by the committee by a vote of 8-0. Item 58-24 was a discussion concerning the Programs and Services Committee work plan for the new term, was voted no action necessary, 8-0. And item 75-24, request to set the early voting hours for the March 5th primary election, was also approved by the committee 8-0. With that, I would move the report.
Thank you, Counselor Krinsman. Counselor Grossman for the Public Safety and Transportation Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report begins on page 25. The committee met on January 17th. The first item was held. The next item, 54-24, request to change the number of deputy chiefs in the fire department, was approved 8-0. With that, I move the report.
Thank you, Counselor Grossman. Counselor Albright for Public Facilities, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report is on page 26, and our meeting was January 17th. And the first item was 3124, excuse me, and it was Everett Brooks Company on behalf of property owners in petitioning for the extension of the city's water main and main drain on Chapin Road and associated easements, which is required as part of the approved subdivision. This was voted withdrawal without prejudice, 8-0, and the other two items are on second call.
Thank you, Counselor Albright. Next, Counselor Gentile for the Finance Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
The finance report begins on page 27. The first item is 27-24. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend $925,000 of the June 30th, 2023 certified free cash for the purpose of funding curriculum materials for the Newton Public Schools. This item was approved by a vote of 8-0. 33-24 is on second call. 60-24, Her Honor the Mayor reappointing Alan Cohen, 12 Fillmore Road, Newton, as a member of the Board of Assessors. This item was approved by a vote of 7-0. Top of page 28, 61-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting approval to accept and expend $500 in a donation from the Newton Highlands Congregational Church for LGBTQ plus celebrations. This item was approved by a vote of 7-0. And the last item is 62-24. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to accept and expend $18,720 in a grant from the state 9/11 Department for Emergency Medical Dispatch Grant Program. And this too was approved by a vote of 7-0. And with that, I'll move the report.
Thank you, Counselor Gentile. Counselor Danberg for the Real Property Reuse Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met on Thursday, January 25th. We discussed one item. It was item number 3624, which was the reuse of a parcel of land on Grove and Hancock Street in Auburndale. The item was held, and I would like to request a suspension of the rules to assign a public hearing.
Go ahead, please.
All right. Do I need a vote?
I'm sorry. A vote? You just assign the public hearing,
I will
Counselor
assign the
Danbury.
public hearing, thank you. The hearing will be on the same item, 3624, and the hearing will be set for Thursday, March 28th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you,
That
Counselor
concludes.
Danberg. With that, that concludes all the items on first call. Before I ask our deputy clerk to call the roll, I just want to announce what we talked about earlier at our chairs meeting, that the meeting with the school committee that we noticed earlier today for Thursday, February 8th, will instead be held on Monday, February 12th. We're going to do that in the chamber with the school committee. Again, I apologize to everyone for all the short notice that's been involved in scheduling this meeting. We have a lot of moving parts, including the availability of the superintendent, the availability of the chair of the school committee, the availability of the mayor, the availability of council members. Nothing is perfect, and for those of you for whom Monday is somewhat of an inconvenience, or maybe a true inconvenience, or even an impossibility, I want to apologize to you for that. I know we'll do our best to be here. The two committees, Finance and Zoning and Planning, that are supposed to meet on Monday night, Finance will be canceled. It had a fairly light agenda. I believe that Zoning and Planning will be rescheduled, at least tentatively, to the 15th, but that's going to be subject to discussion with Councilor Baker and the staff and the clerk's office. So just be on the lookout for those announcements. And with that, Madam Deputy Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Albright.
Aye.
Counselor Baker.
Aye.
Counselor Bigsby.
Aye.
Counselor Block.
Aye.
Counselor Danberg.
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Counselor Farrell.
Aye.
Counselor Gentile.
Aye.
Counselor Getz.
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg.
Aye.
Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey. Counselor Kalis.
Aye.
Counselor Kelly.
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman.
Aye.
Counselor Leary.
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff.
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz.
Aye.
Counselor Lucas.
Aye.
Counselor Maliki.
Aye.
Counselor Mickley.
Aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Aye, with the exception of 2224, for which I vote no.
Counselor Wright.
Aye.
And President Laredo.
Aye.
First call items with the exception of 2224 pass 23 to 0. 2224 passes 22 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. We actually have 3 items on second call, but the first one is what I hope is ministerial, which is we need to approve on second call the request of the mayor and myself to schedule a listening session for council priorities for the 2024-2025 term and fiscal year 2025 budget. This was originally tentatively scheduled for February 15th. That's not going to work given all the changes that we're going to have next week, but I'm hopeful within the next day or two, we have a new date, either the following week or at the latest, the last week of February. It is important, if this is to work properly, that we have an opportunity to have this listening session with the mayor in February so the mayor and her team can do the appropriate budget planning before they present the budget in mid-April. So that is on second call. Does anybody have any comments on that item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk, will you call the roll on that, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker,
Aye.
Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey, Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman, Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lopovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
and President Laredo.
Aye.
That passes 23 to 0, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. The next item on the agenda is 59-24. It's a request for approval for a conceptual design for the Washington Street Pilot Project. This came from the Public Facilities Committee, so I'm going to recognize Chair Albright to give the report, and then this was placed on second call by Councilor Lucas, so I'll recognize him next, and then anyone else who wants to comment is, of course, welcome to. Chair Albright.
Thank you. I'll start by reading the item into the record. 5924 is Her Honor the Mayor requesting approval for a conceptual design for the Washington Street Pilot Project, which will allow the city to advance the preferred concept in close coordination with the project working group and with city departments, including fire, public works, planning and parks, and recreation and culture, and to develop cost estimates within the project construction budget. This was approved by our committee 8-0. I'll give you a brief report on this item. Of course, this item emanated from the Washington Street Vision Plan, which the council passed 5 years ago, roughly, unanimously. Mr. Ostroff gave a presentation at our meeting that the project goals included creating a more safe, attractive, friendly, and welcoming environment for residents, visitors, and businesses using low-cost temporary materials, that it would include creating a 2 to 3 lane roadway, creating pockets of space for trees, planters, public art, and historic signage, providing separated bike lanes, improving pedestrian connectivity, and comfort screening chain link fence along I-90 for noise reduction and visual appeal. He noted that it would also reduce speed, increasing parking access, and improve bike safety, not to mention pedestrian safety. The consultants had a planning process that was preceded by a survey of the residents in the area. 1,162 residents responded to the survey. There were 4 concepts presented. The third concept, which was voted by the council, was approved by it was approved by the committee. To get to that, there was another survey of the community, and there were 721 respondents to the second survey, and by far the concept 3 was in the lead with respect to that item. And in terms of next steps, Mr. Ostroff noted that in the spring, probably in April, the planning department would come back to the Public Facilities Committee with a 25% design and with some cost estimates. So I think with that, we can move that to the.
Thank you, Chair Albright. Councilor Lucas, you placed this on second call.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I put this on second call because this has gotten a lot of talk, the Washington Street pilot, and I was doing my research about the project and everything associated with it. and I found, I don't want to say it's a problem, I found a little variance in some of the backup materials. And what I'm referring to is the funding mechanism. This is using ARPA funds, which we as a council don't really have a say in it, but it's something that I do look at a lot. So there is a problem with the funding, and particularly the amount. What is the budget? What is the ARPA cost for the Washington Street pilot? I have a memo from the Office of the Mayor from September of 2022, which just says the Washington Street pilot is $3 million. On the ARPA webpage, it says the Washington Street pilot is $2.77 million. The public facilities memo, and what has been talked about a lot in emails and in the meeting from a few weeks ago in PF, it says it's $2 million. What's the cost? What's the ARPA expenditure? We have 3 different costs, and I wanted to know. So I emailed the administration to try to get an answer. I haven't received a concrete answer yet from the administration. And it just, how can we vote on something, a project, an important one, that will benefit a lot of people when we don't know the true cost of it? Should we vote on something when we don't know the cost? Again, I've asked the administration, they have not responded back yet, so I chartered the item.
Okay, thank you. The item has been chartered, which means for those watching or perhaps brand new to the council, there is no further discussion on the item this evening. We will take it up at our next city council meeting, the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. All right, next we have an item 33-24. This is referred to public facilities and finance to appropriate $11,475,000 for Newton Public Schools and municipal infrastructure. I'm going to ask Councilor Albright to give the report from public facilities, and then Councilor Gentile to give the report from finance.
Thank
and
you,
then we'll let Councilor Gentile also comment because he placed this on second call. Go ahead, please, Councilor Albright.
Thank you, Mr. President. The docket number is 3324. Should I read the whole thing into the record? It's quite lengthy.
I think you can summarize it. That will be sufficient.
Okay. It's Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend $11,475,000 of June 30th, 2023 certified free cash to fund the following, and it's a list of many items, which I think I'll mention from the report, for the school system, and several items from the Department of Public Works. The meeting was held on January 17th, and the vote was 8 in favor and none against. Let me give the report of the item. We started with the Department of Public Works. Mr. McGonigal, Commissioner, talked about. He began with a request for paving and parking area at Brown Middle School. The lot has deteriorated and become an issue in the past year with record-breaking rains and some serious ponding in the back of the lot. Mr. McGonigal then went on to say that the next item would be repaving of the police headquarters lot. He added, this is another deteriorated lot with drainage issues that need to be addressed, again, with recent flooding. And his last item was $5.25 million, which would go towards street paving, street calming across the city. Then Mr. Morse, Commissioner of Public Buildings, came to speak. He spoke about the air handling unit at Newton North High School, which had deteriorated and was costing more money than it would to replace it, we heard from many residents that it was causing air quality problems in the pool area. There was an item of $1.2 million to replace the roof at Pierce, 21 years old and failing, and to replace the roof at Mason Rice, also 37 years old and failing, and significant repairs were being requested. $350,000 to replace the chiller in Newton South Building H, 22 years old, failed over the past year. They're currently renting a chiller for $85,000 a year, so it would replace that. There was an item of $300,000 to replace the public address systems at both Brown and Bigelow that did not any longer work, and they were both 65 years old. $350,000 to upgrade the Williams School, accessibility improvements, including accessibility improvements in the playground and bathroom to support increased number of students, and also to upgrade the auditorium roof. His final elements were $1.275 million to upgrade the restrooms at Day Middle School, Mason Rice, Bowen Elementary, Memorial Spalding, and Pierce, which are some of the most used assets, he pointed out, in our schools. But for many of the children, they are called gross and unusable. There would also be upgrades to the flooring, painting, new ceilings, replacement of lighting fixtures to make a cleaner appearance. Finally, there was an item of $350,000 to replace the heat pumps for the staff area for the HVAC systems in Fire Station 2. The boiler there is 65 years old, and we need these people to have heat. That's the report.
Thank you. Councilor Gentile from the Finance Committee, would you first give your report and then any comments you want to make?
So, Mr. President, before I do that, I just wanted to point out that in first call, 22-24, which was a community preservation grant item that was reported out, is also, it needs to come to finance. So for those folks that may be watching and are interested, this is the second church item for a restoration item. I just want to make sure everybody realizes that that item still has to come to finance.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. So just to be clear for the public, our vote had no effect on that item tonight because it's going to go to finance, and then we're going to have an opportunity to officially vote on it. Okay, go ahead, please, Chair Gentile.
So docket item 33-24, as Chair Albright already mentioned, this was the mayor requesting $11,475,000 from, again, June 30th, 2023 certified free cash. And then there is a list of items, both school-related items, capital improvements, along with city. And I believe I remember the point being made that the mayor's office in making the request pretty much split the money right down the middle, half of it going to the schools and half of it going to the city side. Council Albright did obviously a very good job of reporting on the individual items, so I'm not going to repeat what she said. I guess there's just a couple of things that I want to highlight. First of all, as usual, Commissioner Morse made our job easy because he provided a tremendous amount of backup information, including letters of support and reasons for why the money was necessary in all these different projects. And he either had letters of support from the commissioner and others in Public Works, or letters of support from the principals of the different schools that are going to see improvements with this money. The only highlight I want to highlight, there was a lot of attention paid to the air handling unit for the pool. We heard from a lot of folks that were concerned about that condition. So I'm glad to see that that was in there and that had a lot of support. The only real questions came up around the parking lots, the one at Brown, and then the parking lot in the fence around at the police station. And in both cases, the commissioner made a strong case that both of these items were in this request because they posed a severe, a safety issue. And behind the police station, Commissioner Morse talked about several near misses because there's so much activity. And I, for one, was skeptical about the fence, but after hearing him, I was persuaded that this money needed to be allocated to put up the fence. So anyway, we met on 2 different nights on this at our January 8th meeting, and then again on our January 22nd meeting. And on January 22nd, the vote was to approve the item with 6 members in favor. There was no votes against the item, and there were 2 abstentions. I did put the item on second call, but I only did so because I knew that there were a couple of committee members that I think wanted to have an opportunity to speak on the item. Not because, I don't believe it was because of any opposition, but they wanted to just address a couple of points, previous votes, and how they plan on voting tonight. So that's why I put it on second call. And if those councilors still want to speak, then I'll just turn it over to them.
Thank you, Chair Gentile. Does anyone wish to be heard on this item? Councilor Mickley.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this item has a bunch of different things in it, 2 categories of items. One is the school-related items, and the other is the city-related items. I like to look at both of these through the lens of what's nice to have and what you need to have. On the city side, these are all need to have. Over $5 million is for roads, traffic calming, and you can go anywhere in Newton and see that we need that. There's a good chunk for the police parking lot. I did a site visit about a week ago. It's in terrible shape. We need to repair that. On the schools, these are also important need to haves. We need to replace a roof at Pierce, a roof at Mason Rice, and bathrooms at Day, Mason Rice, Bowen, Memorial Spalding, and Pierce. We got letters from students at Mason Rice that talked about how they couldn't focus on studying because they didn't feel comfortable using the bathrooms because they were in such bad shape. They would hold it in all day. So that's a need to have. That's an absolute need to have. But I abstained. It was actually Councilor Grossman that suggested the idea of abstaining because last week while we were voting on this, the teachers were on strike and there weren't teachers or students in the building. And I appreciate that Councilor Grossman suggested this idea. I followed her lead on it. And when you think about nice to have and need to have, there's actually a third category, the reason to have. The reason we have schools, the reason we have buildings, the reason we have roofs and all these things in the first place is for people to be learning in person together, teachers and students. And as we were talking about all these issues with teacher pay, compensation, the needs of kids, it felt like we had to get that sorted before we sorted this. And now that we did, on the first day that kids are back in school today, it feels like the most appropriate time to enthusiastically support all these need to have things and give our teachers and students the learning environment that they all need. So I will support this fully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mickley. Before you do, Councilor Lipoff, I just want to remind folks who are you, Councilor Lipoff, all yours. Go ahead.
I was just going to remind everybody and Councilor Mickley that it was a wonderful speech, and a lot of us agree with you, but that's what we do with your first speech, and I'm sure you know that. So, excellent, and I will second your emotion and just say that these are all necessary things for our schools. I would hope that we would all support this, and I agree with your words. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lipoff. Councilor Grossman.
Thank you. Well, it is hard to follow such a heartfelt, passionate, and deeply thoughtful comment as came from Councillor Mickley in his first comment here in the chamber. I just wanted to quickly add, as Councillor Mickley alluded to, I did abstain, and my reason was very simple. I did not feel comfortable approving this amount of an allocation from free cash when our kids were locked out of school, and we had so many question marks around how we were going to get through that crisis. I'm thrilled that they're back in school. I'm thrilled to support these investments in our infrastructure, and very happy to support this item tonight. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilor Grossman. Anyone else wish to be heard on this item? All right, seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councillor Albright.
Aye.
Councillor Baker.
Aye.
Councillor Bigsby.
Aye.
Councillor Block.
Aye.
Councillor Danberg.
Aye.
Councillor Downs.
Aye.
Councillor Farrell.
Aye.
Councillor Gentile.
Aye.
Councillor Getz.
Aye.
Councillor Greenberg.
Aye.
Councillor Grossman.
Aye.
Councillor Humphrey. Councillor Kalis.
Aye.
Councillor Kelly.
Aye.
Councillor Krinsman.
Aye.
Councillor Leary.
Aye.
Councillor Lipoff.
Aye.
Councillor Lobovitz.
Aye.
Councillor Lucas.
Aye.
Councillor Malachy.
Aye.
Councillor Mickley.
Aye.
Councillor Oliver. Councillor Wright.
Aye.
And President Laredo.
Aye.
That motion passes 23-0, 1 absent.
Do I have a motion to adjourn from Councilor Malachy? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Baker.
Thank you. I just want to indicate I'm trying to find out about rescheduling zoning and planning, as you indicated, for the 15th. And just to apologize to Councilor Gentile and his committee, I was misinformed. I had understood finance had acted on the CPA item, so that's why we reported it out. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Malachy.
And I will move to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned at 8:22 p.m. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful rest of the evening.